Welcome back. Time for Media Watch. The horrific killings carried out by Mohamed Merah put France on the front pages of newspapers worldwide. The fallout from those crimes is still making headline news. James Creedon is here with the latest. This is the conversation between Merah and the police broadcast on French network television.
That's right. There was a 32-hour siege, as you know, Mark, back in March, around the time of his killing, which led up to his killing. And there's a recording of 4.5 hours of those negotiations back and forth between the police and Mohamed Merah, who has become this awful, evil kind of type character in French news. In any case, extracts of those negotiations were broadcast on French television last night. The Interior Minister has strongly condemned the channels involved, saying, look, this is an investigation that's underway. It's a police investigation. If we are broadcasting elements of this, this shouldn't be done. So let's just take a quick look at online at some of the comments surrounding that. You've had members of the family as well, or lawyers representing the families of the 6 victims killed by Mohamed Merah, saying, look, people are worried now that the video recordings that he made or allegedly made of the killings could also circulate online. In other words, too much of what is a police investigation is being made public. And you have some people, obviously then you have quotes of what Mohamed Merah said being plucked from those extracts played last night and put on Twitter. I love death as you love life, he is said to have said, or the recording has him saying. So people intrigued by those quotes. Other people saying, what next are we going to see? It took a recording of Mohamed Merah flushing the toilet. Would that interest TF1? Is this information? Is this news? And that is, I suppose, the debate. To what extent should this be in the public domain? Another person saying, look, there's too much controversy surrounding this voice recording of Mohamed Merah, when you think that this weekend on Soir 3 on the France 3 network, they broadcast an Afghan woman being publicly executed by the Taliban. In other words, that's worse really than Mohamed Merah's voice. Are we making too much of an issue? But it's a big debate in the French media today whether or not that should have been put out there.
I mean, certainly if you're broadcasting someone being shot to death on television, that is a step too far.
Right.
The Merah thing, I can only think if it had taken place under English law, the channel would have been in contempt of court and brought before a judge and prosecuted. So I think maybe the differences here in France about how these things are handled legally leaves that loophole for, it was TF1, wasn't it, to get through that and broadcast it.
Yeah, exactly. So I think it certainly has surprised people looking from overseas in any case, and indeed the Interior Minister here in France isn't too pleased about it either.
Indeed, and of course I suppose you can say because of the profile of the case there is a public interest to broadcast something, or you could make that case.
That's right, as TF1 have been doing.
Indeed they have. Okay, we like embarrassing moments here in Media Watch. James is smiling already because he knows what's coming next.
All right, this is the Mayor of Nice, Christian Estrosi. Let's take a look on the computer because I want to explain who some of the characters in this embarrassing story are, right? You've got Dee Dee Bridgewater. Here's a photo of her. She is a well-known jazz singer.
Great
and
smile.
She was the guest of honour at the International Nice Jazz Festival. Now, this lady here is her daughter, China Moses, who is also a well-known singer, in France in particular. And that's Diana Ross, no relation to either. Let's take a listen at what...
That's not the best photo of Diana Ross, is it?
I'm trying to illustrate that she's actually older than Dee Dee Bridgewater.
She's a lot older, yeah.
She's not related to her. Let's take a listen to Christian Estrosi, the Mayor of Nice, making a bit of a mess of all of that.
People often say, my dear Dee Dee, that you're a jazz diva. In fact, you're a much more modest and simple person. That's easy to see. A few moments ago, you were standing beside your daughter, Diana Rose, who's following in the footsteps of her mummy. And I know you're very proud of her.
I think he got Moses and he called her Diana Rose. So I think Rose and Moses, he kind of got mixed
Ross,
up.
okay.
Yeah, he apologised afterwards on Twitter, but people found it very funny. They were like, come on, Diana Ross is older than Dee Dee Bridgewater. She can't be her daughter.
Not like a politician to be out of touch, is it?
No. Well, he is a bit.
James Creedon. Thank you very much indeed, James Creedon.
Thanks, Mark.
With Media Watch.